A little corner of paradise here in the southwest of France, near Aix-en-Provence. The camp was designed as a retreat for businesses to reflect on the future of our planet. Today, it's hosting conferences for the Maison Mediterranée to mark their 30th birthday. The Marseille-based talent incubator provides support to up-and-coming fashion brands from the surrounding area. Their special guest is Nelly Rodi. Having created one of the biggest fashion agencies of the 1980s, she now heads up R3 Lab. This business network connects those doing research in the textile sector, and in its current form, the industry seems to be on its last legs. Pollution, fast fashion, new consumer trends, the pervasive presence of technology, so all possible outcomes are being studied, even the most radical options. For example, what if AI replaced human creativity and even specialized artisans?
Tomorrow we might not be manufacturing anymore. Perhaps in a very near future there will be no more factories, no more manufacturing. But we will still sell things. The industrial sector will just be selling services based on a single product. So if we're not producing within the fashion industry, then we'll be creating, designing. But it could well be the consumer who's producing that piece himself with a 3D printer. Anything's possible.
For the moment, there's more of a push towards deconsumerism. Last year, 43% of French women purchased a recycled or previously worn item. And this impressive sort of data is certainly hitting home for young designers. Yet before they start rethinking the fashion industry, they have to overcome some day-to-day issues. Tunisian designer Anissa Aida is a fan of the Japanese aesthetic and has a multicultural perspective. Having grown up in Paris, lived in the US, today she works in Tunisia.
Yes, there are a lot of obstacles, particularly when it comes to logistics. Starting out, it was really important for me to establish a Tunisian company. I'd been advised to set up a business that would only do exports, because it was easier to work with the studios. But at the same time, it was impossible to sell online, because in Tunisia, there's no agreement with PayPal. So I set up a second business, which is based in France, a simplified joint stock company. Then that allowed me to sell merchandise on my own site and on other platforms too. But it still didn't let me sell locally in Tunisia, in the multi-brand stores. So I then had to set up a third company, a Tunisian one, for the local market. And that is all quite hard to manage. It's really quite complicated.
Tresse, the studio and boutique based in Tel Aviv, has problems of a different nature. On top of the trouble they have getting fabric supplies, there's also the Israeli identity to contend with.
Israelis, they really don't want to look like they dressed up, and they don't want to look, like chic or designers, because it will be too much. It's all about, I think it comes from, Israel being a land of workers that came all around Europe and built the country with their own hands. So it's a bit of conflict with the word fashion.
All of these designers are trying to find low-impact solutions to promote local artisans and expertise in their respective countries. The two founders of the French brand Atelier Bartavelle are taking that principle even further. They're against excessive consumption and refuse to get caught up in the frenzy of producing endless seasonal collections. They've also set up an association called Itinérance, which acts as a network for artisans and craftspeople. They're spending 2 years travelling around Mediterranean countries to produce 5 limited edition pieces.
The first stage was in Greece last summer, where we had grandmothers knitting for us in the Cyclades. And now we've just set up in Tunisia for a few months to do a project with the embroiderers from a village called Germessa. The idea is that they'll embroider our unisex shirts.
The embroidery featured is not simply decorative. They're the words of the Tunisian activist poet Ouled Ahmed, who wrote, "I wrote and I wrote, and there are no more letters. I described and I described until there was nothing left to describe. To sum up, I'll say that all the women of my country are women and so much more.
It was taken up as a sort of feminist anthem, so it's a poem that's quite well known, and since our project is totally focused on women, we thought it would make sense to talk about that through the embroidery of the women of Guermesa.
So what you're doing here, is that a new way to approach fashion?
We hope so. It's still at the experimental stage, so we don't have all the solutions yet. We're still finding them. But in any case, the idea is to present a capsule collection of shirts. And we'll be able to use that as a sample to show other brands how you can find alternatives. You can produce and design in a different way. So, with the craftspeople on board. Yes, promoting this craftsmanship to stop it from being forgotten and replaced by fast fashion.
The fashion industry is intimately linked to the future of the planet. The major challenge then is to reconcile the global nature of technological research with local expertise, with the main idea being less haste, more speed.